Jack, do you have anything to say to our cameras?
Good morning, Your Honor. Ryan Saunders on behalf of the people.
Paul Finks on behalf of Mr. Doshay, and I believe the court has a second matter also communicated up here, and Mr. Doshay is appearing on the second matter, warrants and allegations, and denied any enhancements and allegations.
And he's been advised of his constitutional rights?
Yes, way back, at the time of the original complaint and at the time of the amended complaint.
Very good. Then with that, one or not guilty plea and denial of allegations as set forth in
The initial complaint, when bail was set at $2.5 million with conditions until now, is that now we have a sex intent with respect to that initial incident, which was March 23rd, 2015. The charge has changed from a kidnapping to a kidnapping with sex intent. A charge has also been added of a violation of Penal Code Section 288B1 and A, which is a lesser included offense, with the one-strike allegations per Penal Code Section 667.61, thereby making that incident alone an exposure of 25 to life. Since that time, as the court is now aware, this case has been presented to the grand jury. They returned an indictment on a second incident, which was an incident that occurred on September 7, 2010. In that incident, that occurred at Solana Elementary School. It was a 5-year-old girl. In that case, the defendant lured her behind a shed at a school after school hours, lured her back there under the guise that there was a white bunny back there, got her down on all fours as she's looking for the bunny, grabbed her by the hips, forcefully turned her around, sat her down, began unbuttoning and unzipping her pants, tried to remove her pants in that case. Luckily, she was able to scream, kick him in his private area, and run off. The defendant then hopped the fence and fled up the hill into his neighborhood. Again, very similar in circumstances to the March 2015 incident. For that charge, a count has been added of the same violation, lewd act on a child with force. Again, another one-strike allegation was added, which makes that count, again, 25 to life. So now we have the defendant's maximum exposure, which was initially a determinate term of 11 years, to now being 50 to life. This defendant, I believe, I think the charges demonstrate that this defendant poses a great risk to public safety, especially to little girls.
With respect to the new charges, Your Honor, those are the 2010 charges. I am informed that the alleged victim in that case, who was 5 years old at the time, has identified with an 80% certainty the person who she alleged did this to her. The person, however, is not Jack Doshay. She identified someone else. She said there was a possibility of a small percentage that it could have been Jack Doshay out of a photo lineup of 6 people. There was no other evidence in the case identifying my client. I won't go into the DA's motives for bringing this case. I would suggest under any other circumstances it would not have been issued. That having been said, I've submitted to the court a letter from the company that has monitored Mr. Doshay's ankle bracelet. That company has said that he has been perfect with respect to his behavior with the bracelet, and if he goes 5 feet outside of the area where he's supposed to be, they get notified right away.
Given the nature of the charges, the allegations, the extent to which the defendant poses a flight risk, as articulated by the people, it seems to me that the appropriate bail in this case is $5 million.
Okay, Paul, I need to shut off his ankle and that too. And some of this. Okay, of course. Yes, sir. Okay, Paul, I need to shut off his ankle and that too. And some of this. Okay, of course. Yes, sir. The protective order. You'll have that scenario.
Should I bring it down right now, or should I do it after lunch? His maximum exposure with respect to the 2 incidents is 50 to life.
So you guys recently learned about the 2010 incident. Can you just kind of explain to us how that came to be?
As you know, there was a tip line set up. Once this case came to light, law enforcement was contacted by someone who came forward regarding a 2010 incident. That was an incident that was initially reported back in 2010 and then was investigated further once it came to light in 2015. The bail request made in this case is a reflection upon, as I stated in court, the bail request is a reflection, or it's reflective of the seriousness of the crimes that were charged, the potential danger to public safety, and the potential for a flight risk. And we asked what we thought was appropriate, and the court set an amount that it thought was appropriate.
What you learned about the case is that the victim in the original case has given multiple statements to law enforcement saying she was never touched in any intimate part of her body. So we're obviously disappointed that someone has alleged a molest when there has been no description of what most people would consider activity of molestation. In the March incident, that is the most recent incident over here, we do not know what the evidence of sexual intent is because I have seen the videotape statements of the victim in this case who has not discussed any sexual behavior at all during her interaction with whomever was with her on the school campus. So where the sexual allegations come from, I do not know. I do know that they do not come from the victim because I have seen her repeated statements to the contrary. So I don't know where that evidence will come from. Okay, I mean, obviously, the more serious the charges, the more fear it puts into someone. When you're charged with a crime of a sexual molest that happened 5 years ago, where the victim has not identified you but identified somebody else, obviously, it becomes very alarming because in these types of cases, people are prone to not look very carefully at the evidence and just assume the worst. And that's why these cases are so emotionally charged. They're very serious, but they also carry a great deal of emotion with them. If any touching of any child is a lewd act, obviously, then that's an overly broad expansion of the law. I don't know what the prosecution's theory is on the lewd act. All I know is what the victim has said about how and when and where she was touched, and I don't detect any lewdness in the touching there that most people would associate with the lewd act. If a lewd act is touching someone's shoulder, then that's unknown to me, and I think that's different from what most people would think of a lewd act. Most people would also consider this to be an attempted kidnapping, I think. The prosecution has said that there was a kidnapping, but the victim never left the school grounds, and the victim was only moved a matter of 30 or 40 feet, is my understanding. And so this was an attempt, not a completed kidnapping. So on a variety of issues, we have some very strong differences with understanding the prosecution's analysis of the evidence. It would appear to us that, if anything, the victim in this case got away from an attempted abduction, which we would make it an attempt kidnapping, and that the touching had no lewdness associated with it. So it's hard for us to understand at this point, without having received all the police reports and everything else, what the theory is behind that. On the second case, 5 years ago, with a 5-year-old witness who has identified someone else with a high degree of certainty, not my client, it's very difficult for us to figure out why someone would be charged with this crime without DNA, without fingerprints, without an investigation, without an eyewitness, and without, at this point, we just have no answer for that in light of the fact we've provided no evidence that my client did it other than he lives nearby. And that's all we've been told so far.